Untold Tales, The Unanswered Cry. In a universe that is infinitely large, reality is but a thin veil of infinite possibilities, ready to be ripped apart as we stumble upon the unbelievable, the strange, and the bizarre. New, shocking stories emerge every day, forcing us to mend our understanding of what is and isn't possible, to redefine the very nature of existence itself. These are the universe's untold tales. On today's program, we hear of a search and rescue operation that was anything but normal, in the tale of the Unanswered Cry. The Odin System. Beating at its heart are the dangerous remains of a long ago destroyed planet known only as the Coil. Mysterious energy storms course through its depth, making navigating the tangled briar of dust and asteroids a hazard for all but the most experienced pilots. However, with the promise of possible credits, miners, traders, and treasure hunters find themselves too often lost in its web. Enter the private search and rescue team, Mulligan's ERS, who specialize in operating in the sector.
I started working the Coil way back in the day as part of the medical team for a munitions corporation that was trying to set up shop. That company didn't last, but my time in the area showed me that there was definitely a need for a decent SNR crew. If it wasn't the storms chewing up ships and leaving people in the lurch, there were plenty of gangs around eager enough to do the work themselves. So plenty of rescue contracts to be had. The only hard part was finding them.
Astronomy theorist TAD YAI explains.
While the mechanics behind the Coil's so-called electrical storms are still being debated among scientists, one thing that we do know for sure is its effects on communications and scans. The massive amounts of energy building up and discharging play havoc on most basic comm systems, creating static and interference at the best of times, and at worst, disrupting transmissions altogether.
You pretty much need to actually be flying through the Coil itself in order to pick up anything. That means doing regular sweeps and patrols to listen out for anyone who might need help. Completely different from a normal job, where there are plenty of distress calls coming and the only reason you're flying around is just so you're the closest responder. No, here if you want to get a rescue call, you have to go and find it. For better or worse, we're one of the few SNR crews crazy enough to do it.
It was one such patrol through the Coil that the Mulligan and her crew picked up a distress beacon from the ship Jasmine Bloom.
Started out a normal enough shift. A couple of hours quiet, and then, right as we were heating up some food for mid-shift, the comm springs to life with a hisser. A ship's AEB had triggered from an atmo leak and was putting out a help call. We knew we had to hurry.
In an atmosphere leak, the difference between life and death can be a slim margin separated by mere minutes. Medical expert Dr. Rodney Biggs explains.
Lack of oxygen or hypoxia leads to sluggishness, sweating, shortness of breath, and confusion. This is what can make an atmosphere leak so very dangerous. It can rapidly affect a human's cognitive abilities and, as such, their ability to protect themselves. If the problem persists for long enough, the victim will eventually black out. Quickly thereafter, without oxygen, your brain, liver, and other organs can permanently be damaged with just minutes after the first symptoms start.
Sometimes you get lucky, and the crew was wearing suits or made it to their pods, but you also see enough cases where the poor bastards have blacked out of fumbling at a latch or trying to put on a helmet. And even if they do get sealed off, most ships only carry so much reserve atmo before everyone will be left sucking on vacuum. Basically, when it comes to leaks, the sooner you can get there, the better.
Yet no matter how fast Mulligan and her crew raced to the rescue, they were doomed to arrive too late. Decades too late, as Colin Fistern, brother of the Jasmine Bloom's captain, explains.
She had been sick of working in an office, and after losing her third job at so many months, Jasmine had brought a hauler on spec. Figured she could do better on her own. I tried talking her out of it, but she wouldn't listen. She got some contracts here and there, but her back payments kept piling up whether she had shipments to do or not. The way I remember it, she was getting pretty desperate. Jasmine was only a few weeks from having to sell the thing when she learned just how many credits you could make if you were willing to haul out an Odin. She said she didn't care about how dangerous it was. Jasmine was like that. She headed out to Odin, and that was the last I'd ever heard from her. Going on about 30 years ago this March.
The ship, if you could call it that still, looked like it had been floating there for decades. What was left of the hull had been severely burned by the coil, inside and out. Yet the date stamp on the distress beacon showed that it had triggered only 45 minutes prior. We all just looked at each other. It didn't make sense. What the hell was going on?
When we come back, we learn the tragic fate that befell the crew of the Jasmine Bloom.
I cut through the bulkhead to the cabin doors, and there she was, her hand still touching the console.
And discover an escape pod holding a dark family secret.
It was betrayal, pure and simple. How could she do that to us?
All that and more when Untold Tales returns. This is Captain Bayne. Thank you for taking the time to listen to SC Lorecast's telling of Discovered, the Unanswered Cry. This official Star Citizen lore can be found within the Spectrum Dispatch section of the Roberts Space Industries website. Like many of you, I am quite eager to hear the continuation of this compelling Star Citizen lore, as it very much leaves you on the edge of your seat. A special thank you to the SC Lorecast voice actors. This Lorecast was slightly different than most of what we've produced prior, and I personally feel they did an outstanding job capturing their roles, and the characters feel very real to me. Thank you, team. I'm honored to be working with you. On another note, as the popularity of our efforts spread, I'm getting more and more access to voice talent, music, and content. And recently we were given express permission by Dream State Logic to use their incredible space ambient music as the sound beds for our productions. I highly encourage you to check out the Dream State Logic channel on YouTube. A link is provided in the description, and I suspect you will not be disappointed. Also, I am proud to say that SC Lorecast has been acknowledged by CIG for the second time. In the most recent newsletter, our Lorecast on the Combat Journals of the Pythias was selected as a staff pick. As you can imagine, this means a great deal to me, so CIG, since I know you're listening, thank you. I'll do my best to live up to the standard I have set. To all our fans and supporters, it's an honor to bring you these stories in this format, and I look forward to bringing you many more. Thank you for listening. And finally, to all you Star Citizen fans out there, we'll see you in the verse.